Salutations, welcome to Basic Public Speaking. I am your instructor, Christy Thomas. What I'm going to do now is, I've had a video recorded for the foundations of public speaking, but now I'm going to break it down and just do a couple smaller videos to cover aspects talked about in the book, or I don't even say aspects, let's just talk about the lessons from the book. So first we're going to talk about public speaking itself, the whys, and kind of discuss how the fears work. Not how the fears work, we know how the fear works, but why the fear is there. So let's just talk about public speaking in general. Why public speaking? If you're attaining, especially a 4-year and a 2-year program, you're required, a general credit you have to have is basic public speaking. But why? My career doesn't involve me talking in front of a large group, because when people think public speaking, they think of talking in front of the public, like political speeches, like State of the Unions or graduation speeches, or, you know, a formal speaking where you stand in front of an audience and you talk. But folks, it's not just formal public speaking. It's public speaking in the sense that you are bringing a group together. So it could be talking to your coworkers, talking to a group that you are associated with, or your a church you're associated with, co-workers, a classroom setting. Though in our classroom setting, it's not. Ours will be done electronic media based. But in a typical classroom setting, there you go. So public speaking has been studied, celebrated, and feared since we've studied verbal human communication. And that's been a long time, folks, a long time. Public speaking, it moves people. And what do I mean by it moves people? Public speaking can entice or enrage. It can get people to, it can influence people on how to act, on how to believe, how to recenter their values, how to start, or how to do something. It's just, public speaking is so much. It's not just a formal, but it can entice your audience. It can arouse emotions in someone, be it happiness or sadness, or, you know, nostalgia or anger. You know, there's so much that public speaking can do. It can influence how we think. You know, you think of it in the terms of rallying people to start or stop actions, or create or decimate laws or rules or societal norms, or it gets people to open their eyes. Hey, you don't realize this is happening, but this is happening. And it's not also on a grandiose scale. It's also local. If you think of it in terms of creating new roadways, or introducing policies in your town or your school or your world. You know, with schools, it's committees on what's allowed to be worn, what's allowed to be carried in. You know, are backpacks allowed? Are they on the clear? Or, you know, can we have purses? Or, you know, clothing? What can we do here? All of that falls in the realm of enticing and inciting, and all that falls in public speaking. If you think of it as a tool, you know, chefs have tools, athletes have tools, mechanics have tools, you know, it's there. With public speaking, though, we talked about it's celebrated, it's been studied, but let's talk about the feared part. A lot of folks, and I mean a lot of folks, have anxiety when it comes to public speaking. And some, it may not be large and in charge. It may just be a little flutter of butterflies as you think about it. And for others, it could be crippling, like panic attack inducing crippling, sweaty, just an overall. So you have highs and you have lows and you have middle ground. But let me give you, this is a quote by Jerry Seinfeld, and it's really a wonderful quote that kind of encapsulates the fear and anxiety of public speaking. I read a thing that actually says that speaking in front of a crowd is considered the #1 fear of the average person. I found that amazing. Number 2 is death. Number 2. That means to the average person, if you have to be at a funeral, you would rather be in the casket than doing the eulogy. Jerry Seinfeld. Folks, isn't that crazy? But it's a reality. Like, I don't want to sit here and fool you and think I have it all together and I'm extremely calm in front of people. It's not. There's also a big difference doing electronically in my world. I still have it if I were to come into a classroom. And some people, public speaking comes to them easier and some of it comes to them harder. And then there's also some people they're okay with it if they can speak to a group of peers, people that they know. But some people are more comfortable if they speak in front of strangers, vice versa. You see how it goes? There's just so many levels of anxiety here. And then we talk about public, and I've said this before in this one, is it's a contradiction. It connotates a large group when in reality it's performing in front of a small group in a private setting like the classroom. In terms of public speaking currently, it's about bringing a group together or constituting a public at the moment of speaking. And it's a kind of I don't want to say a tit for tat, but it's not just putting forth information. There's also the back and forth. Are they listening? It's a group effort. So it's ensuring that ethics of listening is happening in your class as well as speaking. And when that's done non-verbally, and we discuss that in a later in the course, but the fear of public speaking or the anxiety associated with it is common. So you are not alone if you are a soul that just absolutely dreads speaking to others in public or in a group. It's not uncommon. But there's ways that we can navigate speech anxiety. So really, communication apprehension is the fear of verbal communication with others. That's communication apprehension. But speech anxiety is making the speeches, and from that we get stage fright in our cultural term. But it's really, public speakers have this stage fright because lack of experience with giving speeches. So practice, and in the next little element we'll talk about that. So I have notes all around me. The book gives us some ways to help us navigate our speech anxiety, and it's telling us that our anxiety is actually just excitement. We're just really excited to get in front of people. So it's kind of reframing and retraining your mind in that way. And another way we can do this is that we channel our nervous energy into planning and preparation. So how do we do that? We prepare our speech, we write our notes, we study, we practice, and then we practice. Again, we'll get into that a little bit more. We really have the speech anxiety in preparing for it, because once we start, we kind of go into that mental mode. So like, it's not as daunting to us. But those are some ways that we can prepare ourselves and get past the anxiety. Now, I also want to discuss in this little section how to prepare ourselves and work on our anxiety. I will say this repeatedly, and I cannot say it enough. Practice. When you're going to give a speech or preparing for one in this course, write your stuff down, but you will not be submitting a word for word verbatim transcript of what you're saying to me. At times I will ask for a basic working speech outline. Let's discuss later on. But when I say practice, say it out loud. There's a big difference from saying something in your head and then speaking the words out loud. So record yourself with your phone or a computer or just say it out loud in front of it, talk in front of the mirror if somebody wants to listen to you, like family members or friends or a significant other. Let them listen in, or do all of the above, but practice. Say it out loud. Because I'm someone that tends to talk fast. And I have to give myself that breath. I have to give myself that pace. I have to take that break. Otherwise, I'm going to go so fast, you're not going to know what I'm talking about. So by practicing out loud, you can practice the pace of your speech. And pacing really helps. Especially, and then you also are inserting breaths. Breaths help with your pacing, and then you can also hear your intonation. Perhaps you want to be more stern, or you want to be more jovial, whatever. All that comes into play with practice as well, and so does our nonverbal. And nonverbal, which we discuss later on, is our facial expressions, our intonations, our pace, our breath, our enunciation. All that comes into play. I talk with my hands. I have to make sure I don't talk too much so it's not too distracting. But practice, 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 practice. All that comes in. All that, you know, that will help with your anxieties as well, but it also helps with your speech preparedness. It kind of also just talks about fake it till you make it, and that's kind of conning yourself into, yep, I can do this, I can definitely do this type situation. All right, so this little snippet video just kind of covered why public speaking, what public speaking is currently in our world, and the anxiety associated with it. So let's move on to another portion of the foundations. Thank you.